Hello, friends. Welcome to the second episode of my podcast. My name is Mark, and today I am here with my dear friend Sam.
Hello, nice to meet you guys.
Yes, and we've decided we will talk about art today because we are currently studying in Florence, the city of art and beautiful artworks. And so, what better opportunity to talk about art than this? Sam, let's let's maybe start with a big question.
Sure.
What do you think, or how would you define what art is, or for you, what it is?
Well, good question, Mark. I would say everybody has a different definition of what it is for them, but for me, it's probably some expression of creativity, some expression of emotions, and yeah, trying to convey some sort of meaning to the other person.
Wow, that's actually really good definition.
Yeah, what about you?
I mean, I resonate with basically all you've said, like the conveying meaning, the creative act. I see it, I think, in a similar light, I would say. Uh, when I did a research for
Yes.
this episode, or a little bit reading,
Yeah, of
I
course.
was also trying to find the answer to this question: what is art? So I'm just gonna read you a definition based on like several sources
Sure.
what art is.
Hit me with it.
So, art is a diverse range of cultural activity centered around works by creative or imaginative talents, which are expected to induce worthwhile experience, generally through the expression of emotional power, conceptual ideas, beauty, and slash or technical proficiency.
Wow, that's covering all the bases here.
Yeah, but I think it's basically what you've said, and with what I agreed,
Sure.
that it's the creative act, inducing the meaningful experience, stuff like
Yes.
that.
I would actually split the definition in two parts. The
Uh
first
huh.
part of like what it is. Art is a diverse range of cultural activity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the second part is what it should induce or what it should express. As stated here, the worthwhile experiences, emotions, conceptual ideas. So maybe one can see it from different perspectives. Um, One from the
True.
artist's perspective, but also from the other side of the people that experience it.
Ah, yeah. Actually, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think that's spot on. That it means something different for the one that creates it or is creating it, and the one then who experiences it.
Sure.
Later, that
Yeah.
or someone who experiences the product of art.
Yes.
Uh,
But in
hmm.
that kind of vein, what you would you argue is the product of art? Is it the painting? Is it the
Yeah.
physical thing, or is it the thing that gets elicited from it? The emotion, maybe, or some
I
sort of
see what you
feeling.
mean.
For
Yeah.
you, of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
in your
Yeah. Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
opinion.
No, that's a good question. I mean, I think I see it the way that the product of art is like the finished product, meaning the I don't know, sculpture, the painting, the poem, whatever. Uh, because I think that the art is in a big part the process of creating this product. It's not
Hmm.
just the product itself. What do you
Okay.
think?
Yeah, I mean it certainly is a combination of all of these factors and probably also different for everybody.
Hmm.
If you prefer a certain type of art, if you prefer a certain step of enjoying it, for
Mm-hmm.
example, being part of the process by participating in drawing sessions or actively engaging yourself in making art.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also on the other hand, if you just enjoy going to the gallery or um, watching or hearing art performed, um, so I would say it's different for everybody, but
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I was thinking, do you remember a few weeks ago we went to the art history lecture,
yes.
and we talked with one guy there studying art, and he told us that he thinks, or correct me if I'm misremembering it, but basically what I took from what he was saying was that he thinks that the art or the craftsmanship and the skill matters very much, and without it, it's the product is not art, or like if you don't
Yeah.
have the skills, the mastery of the brush or whatever, it's not art. But my
Yes.
personal feeling is kind of in disagreement with it. What do you think about it?
I would be on the same page as you.
Uh-huh.
If I remember correctly, the argument was that art should show something greater than, so making something better or deeper or more beautiful than it is in real life.
Ah.
But I believe that that is not entirely the entire point. It is certainly the point of a certain specific kind of art. Talking about painting or drawing in general as a sub branch of art. I would argue that it really depends on the artist and the person that creates the art, of what they believe is art, what they believe should be captured. For example, that specific person we talked to is specializing in realism, in drawing
Yes.
people and drawing portraits. But I wouldn't argue that that is a greater branch of art than, for example, people 100 years ago or 200 years ago that were doing completely different things, or even modern paintings. Um, so maybe for me, it's more important of what emotions get elicited from it, or if you feel something when seeing a painting or seeing some sort of creation, rather than the true skill expression. Of course, it matters as well, but I would argue it's more a mean to communicate some sort of emotion rather than being art itself.
Yes, I completely understand, because it's so cool to see that you share basically the same viewpoints as I do, because that was basically something I wanted to get to. For me, art is about, well, conveying something. You touched on it with the conveying meaning, and now with the conveying emotion. I would maybe add conveying a story, for example, but I think it's closely related to the emotion, because stories are usually meaningful if you feel some emotion behind it. So I think it's like a package of all those things. And about the point that realism or realistic art being like better than other branches or anything, I don't think so. I mean, I agree with you. And I was actually thinking, for example, the first ever artworks, like some cave paintings, we still call it
Yes.
art, it's just wall
Yeah.
paintings, very rough stick figures, and I don't know, a fucking mammoth or a bear,
Yeah, of
just on
course.
the wall, just a silhouette.
Yeah.
Carved into the stone with another stone or a stick. I mean, it's still kind of art. I don't know if
course.
it's. I think the history behind it adds to the value of it as well.
Of course. Yeah.
But still, you can maybe see what they are trying to convey. Maybe are trying to send some message to the next generation, like, hey, this is how you hunt something, how you
of course.
survive. This is don't get don't get expelled from your tribe or whatever, you know, so just
Yes, that's a
conveying
great
these
point. Yeah,
basic truths from their life, I think it still counts as art, I would say.
of course. I would argue that it like originated a long time ago and
Mm-hmm.
just continued to um, expand, continue to encompass more and more. Whereas in the beginning, maybe as you mentioned, it was just a way of portraying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I killed some big animal today, or some sort of conveying some communication
Mm-hmm.
between people. It evolved to still do that, but also still do a lot more,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and accomplish a lot more in
Yes.
that time period. And I find it quite fascinating to see the difference, to see the development of certain types of art, certain
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
motifs from Christianity or from other areas that are quite prevalent in art,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and how these
Excellent.
types of concepts are conveyed throughout the history.
Yes, yes. Do you have a favorite era of art or favorite style?
Hard to pinpoint. I would, I can't really like decide on one specific thing. Maybe if we take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and talk about more what types of art they are,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I could give you more of an indication. As for music, for example, I would
Ah,
classify that
yes.
as art as well.
Of course, yeah.
I am a big fan of Bach
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and Beethoven, that area, as well as Mahler and Brahms. So in that kind of area, I
Mm.
can give you some pinpoints, but for the painting side of it, I can't really decide. How about you?
Actually, it is hard for me to say precisely as well, but I think in my case it's because I don't have that much knowledge about art. Like I know some basics, you know, the big names like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm not knowledgeable enough to like say this is what I like. This is
Of course,
yeah.
but that's also interesting to get to know specific things
For
and
sure, for sure. And
get
I
deep.
definitely want to learn more, of course. Yeah. It's
Sure.
just I haven't gotten around to it, I
No,
guess.
that's a valid point. I mean, there's no one forcing you to do it, and I think it's better if you develop an intrinsic motivation to do it rather than someone telling you,
Yeah.
"Hey, go there,
Oh, for sure.
figure it
For
out."
sure, yeah. For example, I love, you know, in today modern age, social media gets lot of, uh, lot of hate, I would say. But for example, I love when I just scroll reels on Instagram and I just got recommended some interesting artwork or
Mhm.
some, you know, I don't want to say little, but like not so well known artists creating something. It's just beautiful to see, man, that
Yeah,
people are doing it all around the world and, you know, in
for
different
sure,
styles. So many ideas. I get inspired a lot of times.
for sure.
It's just nice to see, you know.
Of course. And I think also the important thing is to not only focus on the big artists, as you mentioned, Da Vinci, Botticelli's, whatever, over the course of the time, of the centuries. I mean, here in Florence, we have a specific set of artists in different cities. You have other artists in the Netherlands, for example. You have Van Gogh and some of his
Yes.
contemporaries, and of course many different
Mhm,
other
mhm.
artists as
Yeah.
well. But I think it's important to not only focus on these grand works, grand artists, but
Mhm.
also enjoy the little ones, as you said.
Yeah,
The artist that posts a reel on Instagram,
for sure.
the little gallery, the little concert,
Yes,
the
yes.
little photography booth that you can see and visit and get some perspective. So it's still conveying the same emotion
Mm-hmm.
But of course, certain pieces draw the attention more than others. I think one of
For
the
sure.
big ones is the Mona Lisa
Mm-hmm.
in Paris. If you go to the Louvre,
Yeah.
pardon my pronunciation.
Oh, no worries.
You can see that a lot of people just walk through and want to see the Mona Lisa and
Yes.
give little to no regards to other paintings.
True.
So separating the artist or the history from the art is probably important, but oftentimes hard to do, I would argue.
But I mean, the historical significance can also play a big role. For example, if the artwork is, I don't know, revolutionary in something, you know, it was the first. I mean, we keep using the paintings as an example, but I guess
Sure.
it affects all areas or fields of art. But to use the example of painting, you know, if the painter does something that's someone never done before, like shadows in a different style or anything, I guess it has a historical weight in it that also adds to the painting, and it's something that people can appreciate.
Of course. And for me as well, it is really fascinating to see paintings that have hung in the halls of kings or queens, or were made for popes or the church,
Yes.
and have been viewed and watched and admired by generations, or
Oh yeah.
a lot of people throughout the ages, and kind of imagining where that painting would have been, what it would have seen in a way.
Yes.
Is quite fascinating.
Oh, I completely get it. Yeah.
That also works in conjunction with, of course, the art itself. But
I sometimes find inspiration in that, you know, from the little art learning I did. It's, I guess, inspirational to me if I learn, okay, this artist got this contract for this, you know, king or pope or whatever, and this is how he tackled the challenge. This is what he did differently. This is what he did to stand out. I think you can find, you know, if not meaning, some inspiration in that. Something maybe you can bring to your own life, maybe your own projects. Which actually brings me to a question, or another question I have for you.
Tell me.
For those who don't know, Sam and me did, or Sam and I did, art challenge basically here in Florence, because we were so inspired by this beautiful city. We decided to do a 3-week long drawing challenge. Just basically draw a picture every day.
Yes.
And
sketch.
Yes, sketching. Nothing too fancy. And previously we've already agreed that it was super interesting and super what would you say,
an interesting way to see the city, I would argue. I really enjoyed spending time and watching, for example, the Ponte Vecchio, drawing it. Or for me, not really an irregular drawer, or like drawer. I don't know if that is the correct word. Probably
sure,
not.
Sure, let's use it. Let's roll with it.
I guess not, but I'm not used to drawing regularly. So it was a challenge for me, but I enjoyed kind of thinking through it.
Yes.
Finding some sort of rhythm, or just observing. On that note, I really enjoy taking photos. I enjoy photography, and that kind of translated to that drawing challenge of like seeing how the world is, seeing how it really is, not how you perceive it, and how shapes and shadows and forms can play into each other. So that was a great inspiration for me to.
That's very cool.
Participate in that challenge.
That's very cool.
But how would you argue that you progressed over the time, or did you feel some change, or how does your outlook on art reflect in that challenge?
Well, let me start by saying that it was super satisfying. That's what I wanted to say. Super
That is true.
satisfying
That is true.
experience. And well, I wanted to ask you the question like, why did you find it enjoyable? Or that's what I was wondering about myself as well.
Yes.
Like, why did I actually want to do the challenge? Just draw, some shapes, sketch some buildings every
Yes.
day. Like, what's there to, enjoy? But again, I think mm, for me, it's about the emotion behind it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's a goal I set for myself, and reaching goals is always a little bit satisfying, whatever
Of
the goal
course.
is.
Of course.
But it's just, now every time I look at the sketches I did, I see a story behind it. I sat
Mm-hmm.
with my friend next to Ponto Vecchio, sipped on my
Yes.
coffee, draw some buildings. Or I was, one evening I was talking trash about someone with a friend of mine, and we draw the Duomo or whatever. I can see the emotions behind it, the stories, and it's just so nice.
Of course.
And additionally, I think a big part of what's satisfying for me in the art is that I can see, at least in these 3 weeks, I saw uh, how I was starting to master various aspects of the craft, and I think that also plays a big part in making the experience satisfying. So for someone who makes the art,
Yeah.
you have an idea that you want to convey, either visual or conceptual, symbolic, and you have an idea in your head, and the fact that you can actually put it on the paper with your own hands,
Yes.
I think something there is just like naturally
Mm-hmm.
satisfying to the core.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can, one, capture emotions or capture moments,
Mm-hmm.
days, but also, as you said, it's nice to be able to, yeah, kind of put an idea in motion, put an idea on paper, and preserve it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And also, one thing I really enjoy about it is that you are never finished in a way.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
always more to learn, always more to do, always more to discover
Mm-hmm.
about it. Um, so you can, yeah, it never stops. It's never done in a way. Um, so having something that you can develop your entire life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not only through doing it yourself, but also enjoying it, getting to know certain aspects about it.
Yes.
It's a kind of interesting way to, yeah, see the world in a way,
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
I think art kind of represents certain flows of ideas, certain,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wouldn't call it a vibe, but
Yeah.
certain emotions that are present in the current time or
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
past times that you can experience through art.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
so that would be one of my motivators
Nice. Very
to
nice.
work on it.
Hmm.
How about you? What's your reason behind enjoying art, thinking about it?
Hmm. I mean, basically what we've already touched on. Like, I love, we said that, or I said that for me, it's about conveying emotion, meaning mainly through stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love good stories. So if I see that in the art, it's, I don't know, it's magical in some sort of sense. And it works the other way around. If I'm creating something, if I have a story to tell, and then again, the story can just mean an emotion, a moment I want to remember, whatever. If I have something to tell and I can put it on the paper in my vision, it's just it's so satisfying.
Yes.
So gratifying.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that's a process I just want to intrinsically get better at.
That's a nice point. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what you reminded me of?
What?
I don't know.
Tell
You don't know?
No.
No, I've seen some interview where uh, I'm kind of ashamed. I don't remember the name, but a guy was asked about poetry. Why does he think poetry is important?
Mhm.
And basically, the point he made was that, you know, in your everyday life, most people rarely think about poetry,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
then something happens. You know, a breakup, you lose a loved one, a big change in your life.
Yes.
You know, you just
Yeah.
your life descends into chaos, and you're just trying to make sense of why it's all
Mhm.
happening, of all the things around you, and you know, the guy argued poetry can offer you that, and secondly, it's also uh, mm, it also brings you some peace to see that other people went
Mhm.
through something similar.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And if you can convey that, you know, beautifully or in some meaningful way through words,
Mhm.
again, it
Yeah.
brings a little light into your life, I would say.
Yeah. It can give you some sort of comfort.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
But yeah, that's a great point that maybe in times of crisis, some people gravitate towards art
Yes,
to
yes,
kind of help them with it.
yes.
Um,
Because I think that even not from, you know, if you're someone who just experiences art, you're not creating it, that's fine. But for myself, I find that in, as you said, times of crisis, creating art really helps. And I think, or I have a suspicion, that it's because you yourself make order out of something. You know, you create something concrete, specific, in the
yeah,
vision you wanted. And
yeah,
again, it gives you some comfort or some solid ground you can just bounce off in if everything is in chaos. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
That's a great point. And I also think it's kind of meditating in a way, creating but also consuming it. You can really
Oh, true, yeah.
kind of calm down. You can immerse yourself. You can really make it front and center of your thoughts and be immersed in that artist's vision or your interpretation of that vision.
Oh, yes.
And through that, it can help you kind of work with your thoughts, with your problems or your happy emotions, whatever. Can be both. Doesn't have to be always tragic. But
That is true, yes, yes.
I would argue that that could be also a facet that makes art interesting or draws you to it as it provides that sort of way or that sort of escape.
Yes, and we are arguing well, my friend.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
it actually brings me to another point. I've made a note here. Something I found when doing a little bit of reading on art beforehand, that from recent research, art actually, or there is an indication that art can improve your health, as a mental as well
interesting.
as physical. Uh,
That is good to know.
there's evidence, you know, from the field of prevention and promotion of health, as well as the management and treatment of different diseases, as I said, either mental or physical.
Yes.
So, for example, in prevention, they found out that art affects the social determinants of health. So it can sort of promote, I guess, the social feelings and social connectedness. Art supports child development, which is maybe something I would instinctively say
Yeah.
makes sense.
I mean, probably most of us picked up some sort of crayon in our childhood
Yes,
and
that's true.
drew some
Yeah.
art
Yeah.
in a wider sense.
Yes. Maybe on the walls, so Mom
Yeah.
wasn't so happy, but yeah, we for sure did.
Yes.
Art encourages health promoting behaviors, which is interesting. I didn't delve deeper in that, but interesting. It helps
Right.
to prevent ill health and supports caregiving. So
Okay.
maybe
It's a way to connect with people you care
yes,
for.
yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm taking away from this.
Um,
And
I've
from the yes,
I've also in that similar area I've seen a documentary about
mm-hmm,
a person that does music therapy.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
So it's not something you draw, but um, he worked with people in a mental institute,
mm-hmm,
and through the music they could get in touch with their emotional side and express some sort of feelings
mm-hmm,
and relieve some stress that they couldn't convey verbally
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
due to health problems. But um, he argued that that is a valuable way of kind of expressing
Mm-hmm.
problems, expressing emotions to help these patients.
Yeah, I
And
believe it.
that was really interesting to see, to watch.
Mm-hmm. You must recommend me the documentary.
I will have a look.
Yeah, but on that note, in the treatment of diseases, art actually helps people experiencing mental illness. That's basically what you said, either through the music therapy or any other way. It supports care for people with some acute conditions, supports people who have some neurodevelopment or neurological disorders, uh, assists with the management of non-communicable diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe something I imagine behind it. I can't
Yes.
communicate well, or I communicate it
Yeah.
not through words but through music.
It's also through art. I mean, there are these horrifying pictures of some schizophrenic people.
Oh yeah, that is
But
true.
there are
Yeah.
also these really wholesome pictures or wholesome art created by maybe younger patients that cannot express something verbally,
Uh huh.
and so it provides a way to communicate certain feelings, certain emotions, or
Mm-hmm.
specific things of, hey, I want pasta tomorrow. Is
Yes.
that possible?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it's
It actually makes me think that we are most used to expressing ourselves through words, of course, but maybe that's just a tool that in some cases isn't enough or is just better for expressing some parts of ourselves.
yes.
But the art is something maybe a little bit different. So, again, in some cases, can serve better than words.
Yes.
I guess that comes back to this point. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a super interesting finding. I had no idea they even tested it. And this was
Yeah,
actually
thanks for sharing it. Eye-opening studies.
oh yeah, makes me, want to study art as well. But it was actually, what was most surprising was that it was research backed by a World Health Organization, and it was apparently a meta study of over 3,000 different studies.
Yeah,
I don't know how they managed that, but
that is
very cool findings.
interesting. So it's based on a broad scientific foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and that really helps put it into different perspectives. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
making art more holistic in a way.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, I have some questions to finish off this episode with,
Yes,
or maybe some final topics.
just brief and quickly. We both answer it, and
We can try, but actually, this is
I'm joking.
you've had enough.
No,
But-
I was thinking of more like a spontaneous answer, not
I
you
see.
thinking about it a long time, but like, what's your first instinct when hearing the question?
Yeah,
So
okay,
maybe
we
that
can
could be
try
an
that.
interesting way to answer it.
Yes. Okay, so does a painting, again, for example, need to be beautiful in order to be called art?
No,
Yes.
not for me.
I
I would argue it
argue yes.
needs to elicit a sort of emotion.
Mhm.
If it doesn't do anything for you, then one might not call it art, but it's always hard to generalize that, as maybe
Mhm.
for a different person it elicits some sort of reaction. So I would argue no, but with some sort of caveat to it.
Mhm,
How about
mhm.
you?
Oh no, I'm feeling the same. To my mind, or like I remembered an example of some, like I would call ugly pictures that
Yes.
actually like conveyed again some emotion, maybe some distress. If I remember correctly, there were paintings of some distressed person suffering
Mhm.
from some mental disorders. But yeah, I don't think the art needs to be beautiful in order to be called art.
Yes.
Maybe
No.
again, maybe it goes again to the point of the cave paintings.
Sure, of
Yeah,
course.
I don't know if I would call them beautiful, but yeah, it's still
They were
art, I
in
would
their
say.
time probably, but yes, I know what you mean. I
That
know
is
what you
true.
mean.
Yeah. So, is the value of an artwork tied to the effort put in to produce it?
That's a good question. I wouldn't argue effort in a way of time it took to draw or to create, but for me, art needs to have some sort of meaning, some sort of reason to exist, even if that reason is to be just beautiful to look at. So I would argue if that kind of reason isn't there, if it's just, for example, AI created or just no thought behind it, then I would argue there needs to be some sort of effort that would elevate that art,
Something extra, right?
that spark in it.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
But if you create an exceptional art piece that elicits great emotions or conveys a deep meaning or even looks amazing, and you do it in 5 minutes, then I'm all here for it. That I would say doesn't really influence my perspective of it. However, if you look on social media, for example, on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, a lot of them promote their art by saying 10,000 hours of ... It took 100 hours to create this. In a way of creating some sort of greatness behind it. And
I see.
that does work. So I would argue there's some merit of saying a lot of people view time spent as equal to greatness, but
Yeah.
for me it isn't the case.
Yes.
How would you argue?
I basically don't have anything to add because my instinct goes in the same way. I would argue that effort put in, time put in is valuable, but it isn't the only thing making art valuable. A thought that you can just, you have an idea out of nowhere and you put it in practice. That also counts, as you said. It can some reaction, some emotion behind it, a reason why it all matters.
Yes.
So the short answer to this question would be no.
No.
No. Respectfully, no.
Right.
And maybe a last question we can end this episode on
Yes.
is, what do you think is the purpose of art? I mean, we already kind of touched it, but maybe just to...
But to wrap it up.
Yes, do some bottom line.
For me, it's a way to create emotion. It should capture my attention in a way, or it should elicit some sort of reaction of me. That could be that I'm moved by it. That could be that I'm interested in its history, what it happened with the art piece, or who created it at what time, in what context. Or it could be that I just enjoy looking at it. It's nice. I like the technique. I like the artist. There are many reasons, but for me the main part is it should carry some sort of emotion, some sort of, I wouldn't say hidden meaning, because it can be painfully obvious what the meaning is. That doesn't subtract from it, but I would argue that if it has some sort of spark, some sort of a point that makes it bigger, makes it more interesting, that really makes art for me.
Yes.
What do you believe? For you, what's the purpose of art?
Again, friends, I have to agree. It's like you read my mind. It's very similar. Maybe what I would add is that a great art, in my opinion, makes some sort of a point. Maybe it questions something. It again revolutionizes some technique, for example, in past, or is trying to offend because again some reason. But mostly, I agree. It should convey some emotion. I should feel something when I look at it.
Yes.
Either beauty or wonder when I look at some cathedral or whatever. A disgust, for example, as well.
Sure.
That's also the art.
Also some sort of emotion, right?
Yes.
It's a great point. But also maybe a question for our listeners.
That is true.
What is the purpose of art for you? Think about it. And maybe the next time you see some art, think about what you just thought about and try to understand how that art makes you feel.
And that is a great wrap up. Thank you, Sam, for doing this episode with me. I'm very grateful. It was a great conversation. And do you have anything to add towards the end?
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed doing it, and go see some art.
Yes, let's do this again sometime.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for listening, and until next time, bye bye.